Hello, Cyril, and welcome. First of all, congratulations on your beautiful film that our audience just saw. It is your debut feature film, and it's already traveling around the world. It's being screened around the world internationally, and it became also the Oscar entry for Lebanon. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for featuring it as the opening film, and I'm very glad to be screening in Belgium.
We're very happy to, and thank you for joining me for the Q&A today. If I can start, my reading of the film was actually that there were a lot of like contradictions within the film, which can already be found in the title, Sad and Beautiful. But it's not necessarily put as a contradiction, but it's more like a paradox. It's like resolved, it's put next to each other. And this can already be found also, I think, in the plot, where you put a very personal love story, actually, on the background of this turbulent history of the country of Lebanon. So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about the balance between this personal and there's also archival images. So within the history of Lebanon.
Yeah, great. That's a very open question. But
Yes.
I think that this paradox and this contradiction that you speak of is very much the essence of the country. I think it is embedded in the title of the film in the two personalities of Nino and Yasmina, and in the tone of the film that swings between drama and comedy. But for me, it was my attempt to really personify the Lebanese spirit and Lebanese society, which constantly has this warmth and this joy of life that is set against very turbulent times. And I think the latest events show us again another cycle of violence and turmoil and war and conflict that is traversing the region. But when you're on the ground, you're going to see that there's always, this joy of life, basically, despite all the tragic circumstances. And I think, this joy of life actually comes from tragedy. I think that because we are constantly faced with the possibility of entering another phase of war or another cycle of destruction, it gives the moments in between a lust for life and an appetite to just seek beauty despite everything. So, I think this contradiction is the essence of the Lebanese spirit. And as a first feature, it kind of made sense that I try to personify this or embody this in sights and sounds.
Yes, definitely. And you already spoke about the characters as well, which are kind of the epiphany of like opposites attract, I think. They're kind of the product of what they've been through their lives. And I think they reflect a Lebanese people with the questions and the things that they face that the world makes them ask, the world they're living in. Could you maybe reflect with us on how they kind of portray this couple, like a collective memory of Lebanon?
For sure, I think they sit on the two ends of the spectrum. We have like the on one extreme you have the optimism and the character that always seeks beauty, to the point of denial and even delusion sometimes. And this really stems from his childhood, from his grandfather, having that key moment where the grandfather tries to explain the concept of death to him and transforms it into something absolutely marvelous, which is, as he describes this island and this beautiful place. And I think that this is the embodiment of the character of Nino, of how to turn tragedy into something beautiful. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have Yasmina, who's much more rooted in reality and has her feet down on earth, basically, and sees reality for what it is. And when you do, there's only cynicism and pessimism. And I think we all sit, somewhere in between that spectrum, and we kind of shift, between one and the other, depending on the state of the country. And for me, that's why it was kind of important to place Beirut and Lebanon as a third character, as the third wheel that constantly imposes itself on the couple. And sometimes it does bring them together, but most times it brings them apart. And I think that while this is, very specific to the Lebanese context, I think the questioning that they go through about, this hope towards the future, juxtaposed with this intense cynicism and pessimism, is actually much more universal than than in Lebanon. Because as I was researching the characters and writing about them, I realized that there is, especially with young people, people my generation and younger, there is an ambient pessimism and cynicism towards the future of the world and the planet, and that gets very concretely translated with a declining birth rate in many countries, and in the Western world, but also in some of the countries of the global South. So I think this reflects really the the overall mindset of these two characters in Lebanon, but also of a generational questioning that we are going through.
Yes, definitely. Can you tell us a bit more maybe about the reactions that you've received? Because you say you feel that it's quite universal. Did you receive any reactions that make you say that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it goes again, just like the characters and the tone of the film, it goes on the whole spectrum. So there's people who are finding it extremely hopeful, and they leave the theater saying, we want to embrace life, we want to embrace
Yeah.
family, our partners, love, all the virtues that make us human, and that is the essence of our humanity, which is, I think the most positive and the most beautiful feedback I have received. But I've also received like the complete opposite, where it's like there's such a profound sadness to it, and a sense of fatality, and I think that this is kind of the beauty of art, where the same piece of work can trigger such different reactions. But I think it by the end of it, people are reflecting their own personality and their own vision of the world, or of love, of couples, of family, onto the film. So people end up taking whatever they need most, so that's quite interesting. I've noticed that in Lebanon, for example, or in the Arab world, they identify a lot with the questions of leaving versus staying, staying in this country and trying to build it and rebuild it no matter what. While in the West, for example, in Europe, they relate much more to the question of bringing children into this world, and projecting a hopeful future for them in their own context. And I think the film deals with all of these different themes, and culturally, I think people project their own cultural questioning into the film and the characters, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And what I found interesting about the character of Nino in relation to that, in also staying or going, because he's very rooted in Lebanon.
Yeah.
He really wants to stay there, but at the same time, the restaurant that he's running is a fusion restaurant.
Of course.
It's a small detail, and it brings, of course, a lot of humor also. But is the choice only humorous, or is there like a diasporic aspect to it, or?
Yes and no. So there's a bunch of restaurants in Beirut, or in Lebanon, that you find that constantly try to be trendy and to follow the trends.
Okay, yes.
So it starts as Lebanese restaurants that does hummus and baba ghanoush, and then then it becomes trendier to do sushi, for example. There's a trend of sushi, so they add like a menu of sushi. Then it becomes trendy to do that kind of cuisine, and you kind of end up having this little restaurants with a 20-page menu going through
I see.
the entire world of cuisine. And I've always found some humor in that. But also like the deeper level is that, yes, I think that Nino for me embodies the chaos of Beirut itself. It is rooted in its cultural heritage, and cuisine is part of it, but we are rooted in our Oriental Arabic culture or roots and traditions, but there's always this look towards the Mediterranean cultures and the Western cultures, and some kind of a closeness to these cultures because there's such strong diaspora outside of Lebanon. And so you find that the city, which is full of contradictions, merges these two cultures quite well, because you do find yourself in an Arab country, of course, but also sometimes it feels quite westernized. And the mix and the paradox between these two, was one of the triggers that allowed me to make Nino this chaotic and mess of a restaurant, which is attached to his cultural heritage that he inherited from his parents and his grandparents, but always this will to let's make it trendy. Now it's vegan, let's make it vegan. Let's jump on the train wagon of the vegan trend, etc. So yeah, so a combination of both, basically.
Yeah. I think it's a good balance also found there. You've already spoken a lot about like the real, Lebanon, Beirut. It's very much rooted in realism also, and that's also through the actors, because the main character, Munya Akel, she's actually director. She's not a professional actor, but she's not the only one, right? The chef is also a non-professional.
Most of them are not actors, actually. The only real actors are the seniors. So Nino's grandfather is a great Lebanese actor, and Yasmina's mother is also a great film and stage actress. And Nino is kind of, I mean, he's more of a filmmaker than an actor. At least that's how he defines himself. But yeah, it's his first like main part, a major part in a feature film. So most of the actors, I did cast people who are not necessarily professional, and it wasn't the intention at first. It just so happened that all the actors that I fell in love with happened to be non-professional actors. The chef, for example, I think is a great actor because his personality is quite close to what you see on screen.
I see.
So he's very, very funny. He's naturally very funny. He's he has high energy. He cooks. He shouts. He curses all the time. He's just like such a force of a ball of energy. It made perfect sense for me to cast him in this role. His wife Layla, who's the waitress in the film, also is she does like some comedy on Instagram and social media where she acts herself, basically, and she has a very sarcastic and very humorous approach to social topics, political topics. So it made sense also for me to cast this humor and this exactly. So yeah, every actor has their own little story into how they found themselves in this cast. But I was really forcing them to take the text and the dialogue and to say it the way they would like to say it, to really feel it, to speak the way they would speak, to add jokes if they wanted to add, to not say lines if they don't feel like the lines don't come out naturally. So as a result, after doing a bunch of rehearsals and talking to them, all the dialogue that you see on screen was either improvised on set or was inserted or rewritten to be perfectly said and felt by them.
So you really casted them for their personalities, and you wanted them to be the real ones and to be there. And you didn't feel like you could do that with actors who are trained?
No, you can. You definitely can, because there are some actors that love improvisation, others that prefer sticking to the text. But in the I think in the world of this cast, they all ended up being people who like to improvise, who like to feed off each other. And the beauty of improvisation is that when one actor improvises, it forces the other one to respond to this improv. So it puts the actor constantly in a state of listening and reacting, as opposed to acting or having a preconceived idea of how the scene is going to go. So I like to encourage that. I'm highly influenced
Yeah.
by directors like John Cassavetes, you know, these directors that really try to put the acting, you know, to to put all the technique and all the artifice of film in the service of the actor.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a great group dynamics between them, and it worked really well in, like you say, like this reaction to each other. So yeah, it brought a lot of depth to the film, I think.
Yeah, it
Um,
it makes it more believable, because I think that if you don't believe the actors, you might have the best cinematography, the best sound, production design, etc. If you don't
yeah,
believe the actors, the whole thing falls apart. So
mhm,
that's how I see film.
definitely. Also, to talk about the cinematography and stuff, though,
Hmm.
the language of the film is also quite specific. It's been called like it's very poetic, and it's been called kind of magical realism. There is this fast pace. There's a play with the expectations of the audience. There's some fantasy elements to it. Can you talk more about the relation of the language to the content of the film?
Hmm. Yes, so I worked closely with my cinematographer Joe
Mhm.
Saadeh, who's Lebanese DP, and it's been almost 10 years we've been working together. So we have a
Mhm.
great connection. And the idea was that we have these three different periods, and they need to be defined um, quite differently, but the
Yeah,
whole thing has to feel stylistically consistent. So the visual language was really developed according to the state of the relationship and the state of the country. So you see,
yeah,
for example, when they're falling in love, everything is quite vibrant. It's very colorful. The camera follows the energy of Nino. It's quite chaotic. There's pans, and everything is handheld, and we feel that the camera is adding a lot to the energy of the city and of the relationship.
mhm.
A lot of colors, great, vibrant lighting,
Yeah,
etc. While in the later part, when everything is falling apart, when the relationship is crumbling down, when there's a growing distance between them,
mm,
all of a sudden you're losing these colors. Everything is becoming much more pale
yes,
in
yeah.
comparison. There's blue overtones that take over.
Mhm.
Because there's power cuts and lack of electricity, you feel that everything is kind of more dimmed down. The cinematographer starting, just turning off all of these lights in the restaurant, so it does
Yeah,
give it like a gloomy
yeah,
um, a,
definitely.
a gloomy atmosphere, and this was really reflected from our experience of being in Beirut in 2020, 2021,
Mhm.
2022, going through all of these power cuts and feeling that the whole infrastructure is crumbling and Beirut just feels darker and people are leaving. So even,
Mhm.
with the sound, you feel that everything is much less busy,
Yeah.
there's much less happening. As for the childhood, we shot with T1 lenses, they're Vantage lenses. Anyway, this
Okay.
is this is getting quite
Some technical
quite nerdy,
info.
but the effect we wanted to reach was everything is out of focus and everything is kind of fuzzy, and
Mhm.
the camera is constantly at the level of the kids, and you don't really see much faces, you don't really see much,
I
because
think,
everything
yeah.
is kind of out of focus, because you want to give that feeling of they're fuzzy memories. We don't really remember. We do
Mhm.
remember how they made us feel, but we don't remember visually what faces looked like, what the whole thing looked like.
I think what is most apparent in those scenes is the sound, actually. The rest
Hmm.
is, like you say, quite blurry and memory-wise, but the sounds, I mean, the bombs are falling. It's very obvious what it is. So yeah, that's also a big aspect, I think, to the language of your film. This
Yeah, the
time,
sound.
it's quite absurd also. They're just running around, and the sound of, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
shooting these bombs.
yeah, yeah. Again, because it's this juxtaposition, just like we talked about in the
Yes.
first question, this paradox between my own experiences of having quite happy childhood.
Yeah.
In the 90s, I don't think we were aware of the amount of tragedy and drama that our parents went through after 15 years of war. Yes, we heard fireworks, yes, we heard bombs, yes, we were scared with sounds and things like that,
Mhm.
but never to the level of seriousness that it was. and you know, we used to just run around and escape in the city with a level of freedom that that contrasted a bit the atmosphere. So we decided to do that with the sound, to show like the tragedy and the level of violence and darkness around them. But in their little stories, they're actually falling in love and feeling beautiful feelings.
Yeah.
And the sounds actually that were used were sounds that the sound designer Rana Eid, who's a great Lebanese sound designer as well, recorded herself in the 90s when she was you know, she was graduating from film schools and recording ambiances of Beirut in the 90s, and sounds of fireworks and planes and radios and just, you know, street atmospheres. So so these are, you know, kind of the real sounds. And again, it's very full because Beirut in the 90s was also very full when it comes to audio.
Yeah, I can only imagine, but I think the film really beautifully was like a total, like has a total aspect and package of everything that you described. And yeah, congratulations again on this beautiful film and for showing it to us, and for being part of our festival like this. I think there's
Thank
a
you
lot
so
of
much.
hope and beauty to be found in your film, as well as like real artifacts that
Yeah,
can
yes,
also
you know, despite the sadness and the tragedy of the current circumstances and you know, what the characters go through, I hope that, you know, people do get out feeling some feelings of hope and you know, some joy and some happiness despite everything.
Yeah, I think it's a great juxtaposition of those two very real things. And
It's
thank you so
Lebanon.
much again. Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
Lebanon.